Okay, so there are popular books out there that people love, and the majority of people who read these books and review them give them such high praise, and yeah, it's clear to see that people absolutely love them. And then there are books that people read and review that it's clear to see that people don't love these books. I picked up a book that I went into knowing that the majority of people who have read this do not like this book at all. But I came out loving it. Today we are going to be reviewing this book, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child by J.K. Rowling and others. But yeah, by J.K. Rowling, John Tiffany, and Jack Thorne. And if you have not seen my reviews before, I have two sections in my review. The first section is a spoiler-free section where I talk to you guys about 3 pros and 3 cons about the book in a spoiler-free way. Then we go into the spoiler section where I get to either gush or rant about my feelings in a spoilery way. So let's get right into it. Now, there are cons for this book. This is a YA fantasy, and I ended up giving it 4 stars, but even though I gave it 4 instead of 5, I do still love this book quite a lot. But let's talk about those cons, shall we? My first con for this book is that it is written in script form. I don't want to reveal too much, but that might give you an idea. So it's not written, I have from scratch on me because I was just doing a video with it before. So as you can see with from scratch, it's written in a standard novel writing way, where with Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, it's written in script form. So this is very different to what I've read before, and it took me a hot minute to get into this book because of the fact that it's written in script form. So that's definitely a con, and it's something you should know going in, is that while it is bound to look like a book, covered and bound to look like a book, it is not in fact a book. It is written as a script because it was written as a script to be performed as a play, which has become a very successful play because they've sold lots of tickets for this play, for the book that people don't like. But anyway, but yeah, they then decided to release it because they figured that the Harry Potter fan base is massive and Harry Potter fans will want to read this book. And they're right. We all wanted to read more. The way that, I won't spoil it in case you haven't read it, but the way that the final book in the Harry Potter series, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, ended, it ended rather abruptly. In fact, the difference between the ending of the final chapter and the beginning of the epilogue, there's years that separate those two, and the way that it ends is just so extremely sudden that I definitely wanted more. This book does give us more Harry Potter. But let's get on to my second con of this book, which is that there are moments in this book that go directly against canon. So there is an example of, in the first book, when Harry meets Hagrid for the very first time, this is re-seen in this book. But when it is re-seen, the scene that is playing out in this book is different to how it was in book 1, which I could grab, but I'm not going to. And there are other things that happen as well. There is a time turner that features in this book, and time turner lore is completely different in the first 7 books of the series. And Polyjuice Potion as well. We get to know Polyjuice Potion really well in the second book, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, and we learn a lot about Polyjuice Potion lore in that book, and this book seems to break canon with Polyjuice Potion as well. There is also a character in this book, Ludo Bagman, who only appears in the 4th or 5th book? The 4th book, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, and while he appears in this book, he seems very different to the Ludo Bagman that we saw in the 5th book, and so that definitely broke with canon as well. So the second con for this book is that there are certain things that do occur that break standard Harry Potter canon. I'm happy to let that go though, but you know, it's the only fair thing that I can do is warn you guys that that does happen. My third con for this book is that Up to 3/4 of the way through, we have this story that seems to naturally progress, in my opinion anyway. Everyone has different opinions, but in my opinion, it seems to very naturally progress. We have a beginning, we have a middle, and then we have an end. And it really seemed to conclude in a really good way. But then there was still a whole quarter of the book to go, and I was wondering, why do we have more? Everything's been wrapped up, it just doesn't make sense. And even once I had finished reading the book, I was still questioning, why do we have that fourth quarter? It just, to me, it came from out of nowhere. It's like there was a beginning, a middle, and an end, everything wrapped up. But then, because that's just not long enough, let's create more for these characters to do and create a whole nother conflict and conflict and climax to go through, purely for the sake of, I feel, for the sake of creating more pages and for the script to be longer. So to me that was a con, because it kind of broke the flow of what was a really enjoyable, naturally flowing read up till that point. I'm not saying that the conclusion is bad, it's not, but it's really jerky from such a natural flow from the beginning to the middle to the end of the 3/4 mark. It just flowed so naturally to then be jerked into this completely new thing in the fourth quarter was very off-putting. So those are my 3 cons for this book. My first spoiler-free pro for this book is that I went into this book wanting more Harry Potter. That's all. I wasn't thinking specifics, I just wanted to see more Harry Potter. I had just come off my Harry Potter reread, so in the month of May, and continuing on in the month of June, I read books 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and when I got to the end of book 7, as I was saying earlier, when I got to the end of the penultimate chapter, prior to going into the epilogue, I wanted to see more, because I felt that the penultimate chapter, the chapter that ends just prior to the epilogue, ended so abruptly that I wanted to see more. But I didn't come into this book specifically wanting to see more of Harry at that moment in time. Although, had I thought about it, I probably would have wanted to do that. But I ultimately went into this book just wanting to read more Harry Potter, because I didn't want it to end. And I got that. I got more Harry Potter. So, and there have been complaints that Harry, they didn't stick to book canon for the character of Harry Potter in this book, but I completely disagree. I felt that Harry was Harry. I didn't see anything wrong with how Harry is portrayed in this book. I don't think it goes against canon at all. So that's my first pro, is that I got more Harry Potter, and that made me really happy. My second pro for this book is that a time turner is featured. Again, I'm not going to discuss what happens in the book. I'm just going to say that a time turner is featured. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, which is the 3rd book in the series, is one of my favourites. And the reason for this is because I love the whole idea of dealing with a time loop or anything to do with time. I just really love that kind of stuff. So Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, as well as a book that I read earlier this month, The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, are books that I absolutely love. Even that film Groundhog Day, as much as it's certainly not by any means my favourite film, what I love about it is that the day does keep repeating. I love that kind of stuff. So I love going back in time. I find that to be really, really fun. And a time turner is included in this book, and that made it really fun for me. My third spoiler-free pro and final spoiler-free pro for this book is that this book seems to answer, or not only answer, but it seems to bring about things that fans would want to have addressed. While I feel that this book is not a completely new book, there are flashbacks that we have to things that we have seen before in this book. I really appreciated that, because our characters are trying to deal with something that fans have been wanting to see, or at least hoping or wishing that it could have happened in the first 7 books, and they're doing it in this one. So I really appreciated that. A lot of people say they don't like it, but I personally loved it. So that's where I'm going to leave it, because we're nearly 10 minutes in, and I really just want to get to the gush/rant section of the book. So Those are my 3 spoiler-free cons and spoiler-free pros. If this has intrigued you in any way to pick this book up, do not let the haters stop you from picking up this book, because I did. So when this book originally came out, it came out at Big W, which is an Australian store. Well, it came out at many stores, but I store it at Big W, which is an Australian store. You can look it up online. And I was so excited. I literally went to the store to buy the book. I picked up the book, looked through it, and saw that it was a script, put it back down, and did not even consider buying it until now, until this year, because I was so turned off by the script. I'd also, during that time, heard so many bad things about this book that I just didn't want to pick it up, because everyone was saying that it was terrible and it ruins the series. But you know what? I picked it up thinking, if I hate it, then I can hate it too with everyone else. But I don't. I love this book. So the haters are going to hate, as a famous singer does say. But I think that everyone should, who loves the Harry Potter series, should at least pick up this book, go into it with no expectations, and see what you come out with, because I absolutely loved it. Alright, let's get on to the spoiler section about this book, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. Okay, so I want to keep this video as short as possible, so I'm just going to try and discuss things randomly, just kind of in a spitfire way, rather than going through the book chronologically. First thing I want to talk about is Harry's children. So Harry has 3 children with Ginny Weasley. Now, I never shipped these two, and in fact, when they ended up, getting together at the end of, towards the end of the final book, it just, I never felt comfortable with it. I always thought that Harry should have ended up with Hermione. That was just, I was a massive shipper of those two. I always felt they would bounce off well of each other. And then to look at the other two, Hermione and Ron, it blew my mind that J.K. Rowling put these two characters together. And she did end up saying that she regretted it after a while, but I always was shocked that she put Hermione and Ron together, because to me, I just can't see them being married. It just doesn't work for me. So I always shipped Harry and Hermione together, because I just thought that they would go really well together, but clearly it wasn't to be. I've read many fanfics and that especially revolve around Harry Potter and Draco Malfoy, which I love as well. We will get to Draco in this book. Talk about a redemption arc. Oh my god. But yeah, just quickly starting off with the relationships. I still to this day feel uncomfortable with Harry being with Ginny, and I felt that the relationship, the portrayal of the relationship in this book felt to me rather forced. To me, on so many levels, and this is just a personal thing for me, I feel that it is all types of wrong, and I'm just going to leave it there. The fact that they have named 2 of their children Lily and James, I really appreciated. Some people felt it was rather tacky to put it in this book, but I want to remind you that their names do appear in the final book that J.K. Rowling wrote. So this is sticking to book canon. For those of you who are complaining about book canon, the children's names do not change. Anyway, but let's focus on the protagonist of this book, which is Harry's 3rd child, Albus Severus Potter. Now, what a great child this kid is. He is sorted into Slytherin, and he feared, well, on the first day at Platform 9 3/4, he fears being sorted into Slytherin because he thinks that his dad won't love him. And it's explained in the final book and in the final film and in this book that Harry says, Albus Severus Potter, you have been named after 2 of the greatest wizards of all time. One of them was a Slytherin. So if you are one, that's great. If you don't want to be one, tell the Sorting Hat you don't want to be one, you'll be sorted into Gryffindor. But if you are a Slytherin, that's wonderful. So he ends up getting sorted into Slytherin, but this does start tearing father and son apart. Albus Severus ends up becoming friends with Scorpius Malfoy, who is Draco Malfoy's son. It breaks my heart to not see Harry and Draco together. This is just me, okay? Because I've read a lot of fanfic, and I do have to let that go and take that away from the actual book canon. But yeah, it just breaks my heart to not see those two together. But Malfoy ends up having this wife who's mentioned a couple of times, who ends up dying. So I'm not really going to focus too much on her, but ultimately they have a child, Scorpius, who's also sorted into Slytherin, and these two Albus Severus Potter and Scorpius Malfoy end up becoming really good friends, and their friendship throughout this book is so beautiful. Oh my gosh, it is literally I love you, you love me, I'm willing to die for you kind of friendship. It is so beautiful to read. The only thing that kind of got to me was I kind of wish that they had gotten together at the end of the book. I mean, look, I am happy with any type of a relationship, be it straight, gay, bi, whatever. I'm happy with any relationship, but to me, love is love, and if I'm seeing two characters who seem so much like they're in love, it just felt wrong to me that they were made as straight characters. It just, because they love each other so much, it would have been so nice for them to get together at the end of the book. But anyway, whatever, we'll let that go. I just think, you know, considering everything that Harry and Draco went through in the first 7 books, to have their 2 children be in a relationship would be amazing to see. And then we can go to book 9 and they're in a relationship, and that would be awesome. But no, maybe I'll just have to write the fanfic myself. We'll see how we go if I have the time. So, eventually it is discovered that there is a time turner in the Ministry of Magic. Apparently all the other time turners were destroyed after the Wizarding War. Hermione Granger has become Minister for Magic, and if you followed any of my reviews for Harry Potter, any of the books at all, you will know, it will not come as a surprise to you, that my favourite character in the Harry Potter series is Hermione Granger. So the fact that she became Minister for Magic, 1, shouldn't have been a surprise to me, but it still was, and 2, I was so proud of her. I don't think there could be a better Minister for Magic than Hermione Granger. So there is 1 time turner that is remaining, and Hermione has hidden this time turner inside a book, and there are many riddles that you have to solve to get to that time turner. Did I tell you guys, have I told you guys this before? I have, if you've been watching, but you know, have I told you before how much I love riddles and solving them? This was so good, and it was so Hermione as well. I loved it. So many people complained about Hermione hiding the time turner in the book, but to me, I felt that their hatred of Hermione putting the time turner in the book overshadowed all these riddles that she had put for anyone to try and find the time turner, which I just loved. I thought it was amazing. There have been complaints as well that apparently it's really easy to get into Hermione Granger's office, the Minister of Magic's office, by just saying Aloha Mora. But here's the thing, I don't have an issue with that because it's the Minister for Magic's office. You would just think that people will respect the Minister for Magic, and Hermione is very trustworthy. So, like, she's very trusting of other people. So it doesn't surprise me that she doesn't have all of these charms and hexes and things. You know, I mean, I know that Dolores Umbridge never became the Minister for Magic, but when we go to Dolores's office in whichever book it is, I think it's Deathly Hallows, but whichever one it is, Harry is able to get into her room, her office really easily. So even though she's not Minister, there was never a book canon suggesting that the Minister for Magic's office has a lot of security. Never. So I didn't have an issue with that. So we meet Delphi. Delphi is the sister, or I think it's the sister or the cousin or something like that, of Cedric Diggory. And this book revolves a ton around Cedric Diggory and what happened, his exploits in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. So, quick little recap of Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. The Triwizard Tournament takes place, which is where 3 champions from 3 different schools are selected to compete in 3 highly dangerous tasks, and the winner walks away with the Triwizard Cup and a ton of money and glory of being the Triwizard champion. It features not only Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, but also Durmstrang and Beauxbaton, and I'm again going to make the point that Durmstrang is boys and girls school and Beauxbaton is boys and girls school. All 3 are co-ed schools, even though they're not portrayed that way in the film. Let's move on. That just always annoyed me, but let's move on. So, Cedric Diggory's name is pulled out of the Goblet of Fire for Hogwarts alongside Beauxbaton's Fleur Delacour and Durmstrang's Victor Crumb, and Harry Potter's name also comes out of the goblet because of reasons that we don't have to get into. Then we get into those 3 tasks. The first task is to get past a dragon and collect the golden egg, because the golden egg is going to give you a clue into the second task. The second task is to go underwater and retrieve something that was stolen from you, which ends up being Hermione Granger for Victor Crumb, Ron Weasley for Harry Potter, Cho Chang for Cedric Diggory, and Gabrielle Delacour for Fleur, who is Fleur's sister. Once they've saved them, we then go on to the third and final task, which is a maze, and the book does this so much better than the film. In the film, the maze just kind of comes alive and it's kind of boring, but in the book, there are all these different obstacles that you have to overcome. And so, yeah, now knowing this, at the conclusion of the final task, the maze is buried somewhere within the Triwizard Cup is buried somewhere within the maze, and whoever reaches the Triwizard Cup first will become champion. For reasons, Victor Crumb and Fleur Delacour are out of the running towards the end, and Harry and Cedric end up taking the cup at the same time, so that it's an equal win for Hogwarts, which is really beautiful. But the cup ends up becoming a portkey, transporting them to a graveyard in Godric's Hollow, where Lord Voldemort comes back and rises to power again, and Cedric Diggory is killed when Lord Voldemort, who has not risen yet, he is still a little baby-sized Voldy, says to Wormtail, kill the spare. And so he kills Cedric, and Cedric is dead, crushing so many hearts, including mine. And Cedric is dead, and he's never going to come back. This book seems to revolve around Delphi and Cedric's father, Amos, really wanting Cedric to come back to life, because Amos knows that the Ministry has a time turner, and Harry refuses, Hermione refuses, everyone's refusing to help Amos, but Albus Severus feels really bad for Amos, so he, Scorpius, and Delphi find the time turner, go back in time, and try and change things so that Cedric remains alive. The problem is that, as with most time, going back in time law is concerned, if you change one thing, it affects the future, and that's what happens. They try to save Cedric, and it ends up affecting the future in such a really terrible way. Albus Severus is no longer in Slytherin. Harry is making Albus Severus stay away from Scorpius, which he really doesn't like, threatening him with the Marauders map, that if he goes near Scorpius, Harry's going to make his life a living hell. Which, again, I wasn't that disappointed with. Like, people were really upset that Harry was being really mean to Albus, and at one point says, you're not my son, and at another point, threatening him as to what he would do if he goes near Scorpius. This did not upset me. Like, okay, I'm not saying I didn't feel bad for Albus Severus, because I did. Of course I did. Like, this is horrible. Albus Scorpius has one friend, which is, Albus Severus, Albus Scorpius. See? That's going to be their child's name. But anyway, Albus Severus only has one friend, Scorpius Malfoy. So I felt horrible that Albus Severus's father is threatening him to stay away from his only friend. I felt really bad. But the problem that people seem to have is not that Harry threatened him, but that it was so out of character for Harry. I disagree. Does anyone remember angsty Harry after book 4 when we're in the Order of the Phoenix and Harry is so angsty? No. Harry has proven time and time again that when he goes through really tough things, he lashes and acts out. So I don't think this goes against book canon at all. Again, just my opinion. But yeah, we also find out that Hermione is not Minister for Magic anymore. In fact, she's not even married to Ron in this alternate reality. And in fact, she is the teacher for, I believe it's either Potions or Defense Against Dark Arts. She's some kind of teacher in one of the subjects. And in this alternate reality, she's very much like Snape, which I thought was really fun to see, because it's so out of character for Hermione, yes, but we're in an alternate reality, and that's another thing. To complain that the book doesn't follow book canon is one thing, but to complain that the book doesn't follow book canon in an alternate reality where things have changed because two characters have gone back in time and changed things, I don't understand. The reality has changed. What are you not getting about this? It makes sense to me. So I thought that was really great to see. Let's fast forward very quickly to Hermione, Snape, and co with one of them. I don't remember if it was Scorpius or I think it was Scorpius though. Scorpius or Albus. But anyway, one of them. Snape has a very redeeming character arc in this book. He had a very redeeming character arc in book 7 anyway, but in this reality, Snape is still alive, and Snape sacrifices himself once again, proving that no matter what reality, Severus Snape was always on the side of good, and I really, really appreciated that. We also got a scene that I really appreciated between, a couple of scenes actually, between Dolores Umbridge and Scorpius Malfoy in this alternate reality. What I loved about this is that we had yet to see a one-on-one interaction between Dolores Umbridge and a student that she favors, a student that she loves, that she's supporting. And I really appreciated that. Having Scorpius go into her office and her saying, well, you know, I have a lot of belief in you and a lot of faith in you. You're a very fair Quidditch player, and I think that you'll go very far. Like, I really appreciated seeing her. Even though Dolores is so warped for so many reasons, I really appreciated seeing her talking to a student that she had affection for. It was good to see. Does this redeem Dolores Umbridge? Not by a long shot, but it was just really good to see that kind of thing take place. But eventually, Albus Severus, I almost said it again, Albus Severus and Scorpius end up setting everything right, and everything goes back to normal. Yay! But we're only 3/4 of the way through the book when this happens, and to me this never made any sense. We're 3/4 of the way through, everything's wrapped up, why is there more to read? Like, seriously, they just need to write, and they all lived happily ever after, and the book is done. But no, we have to take a left turn, a very sharp left turn. And with this very sharp left turn, it turns out that Delphi is actually the product of Albus, indeed, of Lord Voldemort and his sex partner, I suppose, because Voldemort could never love anyone, Bellatrix Lestrange. Now, this is something that I do agree with when people are talking about book canon, that Voldemort would never have a child. I have reasons for and reasons against this. So, first of all, had this book portrayed that Voldemort and Bellatrix Lestrange fell in love and had a child, I would be the first to throw this book, and I don't throw books, but I'll be the first to throw this book down and say, no, that's it, I'm done, I DNF, because Voldemort, sorry, I have to say his name right, Voldemort would never fall in love, so he couldn't love. That was the whole point. We were preached this throughout the entire series, so it would, from the moment we get to know him to the moment he dies and can no longer be resurrected. So it just never would have made sense to me that Voldemort ever fell in love. Not at all. But for Voldemort to sire an heir does make sense to me. I don't think he would have wanted a girl, particularly. I think he would have wanted a boy, because that's the type of guy that Voldemort is. But in saying that, it does make sense to me that he would want to sire an heir, because he would want to have someone that follows in his footsteps. Now, Voldemort did believe he was immortal and believed he would never die, but still, I can see the guy thinking, it'd be great to have someone along with me, like one of my own. I can see this, not for the sake of love, not at all, for the sake of someone who is just like him. I can see this happening, absolutely. So to me, it didn't disappoint me that much. What disappointed me was that it seemed like the story was over, and yet the story was still going. So in the end, Harry uses Polyjuice Potion to try and transform, what is the word? Turn into, whatever the word is, Voldemort, because what's happened is that Delphi has gone back into the past to the night where where Voldemort first curses Harry in Godric's Hollow as a baby. So, yay, full circle, that's fine. I mean, still, while I'm reading this, I'm thinking, why are we doing this? The book should have wrapped up by now, but anyway, we're just adding a little extra bonus scene at the end. It felt very disjointed to me, because the book was never about Delphi to me. So it was always about Cedric, and suddenly it's about Delphi out of nowhere. There didn't ever seem to be a clue leading to Delphi being someone who's betraying everyone. It did not seem to lead to here at all. It just came completely out of left field. It feels so completely disjointed. But anyway, So Delphi goes back there because she wants to warn Voldy that if he does commit the killing curse onto Harry, it's going to rebound and cause him a whole lot of strife, and eventually he's going to die in a Wizarding war. So fair enough. Yep, she's his daughter. She wants to do that for him, but Albus and Scorpius end up getting there as well, and then they somehow find a way, a very ingenious way with the blanket, by the way, that I liked, to get Harry, Ginny, Ron, and Hermione and Draco to that point in time to assist everything. Harry ends up taking Polyjuice Potion and becoming Lord Voldemort. This doesn't make sense to me, honestly. How did they get the ingredients for Harry to turn into Voldemort? That's one thing I'll admit does not make sense at all. But Harry turns into Voldemort. Eventually, he ends up killing Delphi. I'm just rushing through because, you know, I really didn't care by that stage. I still loved it. 4 stars, but yeah. No, he didn't end up killing Delphi. He ended up defeating Delphi, but making the point to his son, actually, that his son is not a killer, and that you have to, you know, be the bigger man and make that choice that you're not going to be a killer, which I did appreciate. So I want to quickly talk about Harry and Draco's relationship in this book because I loved it. One thing that I will say is that this is definitely book canon to me. It seemed that Draco was coming more and more around as we got to the end of the series. Draco did not want to kill Dumbledore. Harry ends up saving Draco. Draco is in his debt. Like, it just makes so much sense. Draco's mother doesn't tell Voldemort that Harry is still alive. Draco ends up escaping and not fighting on the side of Voldemort. It makes sense that Draco is slowly starting to come around, and then in the epilogue, they smile at each other, so it does make sense. And Draco is working at the Ministry for Magic. They have a scene where they have a duel at Harry's home, and then they start talking, and they start becoming so much closer, and I loved this. I want another book to wrap that up. Like, just give me one more book of Harry and Draco being the best of friends. I would really love that. Now, Dudley Dursley, while he does not make an appearance in this book, he is discussed in this book, and I really do appreciate that. It seems that Harry has gone over to visit Dudley quite a number of times, and Dudley ended up giving Harry the blanket that he was wrapped up in when he was placed on the Dursleys' doorstep. I appreciated that too. There are so many things that happen in this book that I'm just so appreciative of. I felt that the writers really thought when they were writing this book about things that fans would want to see. Now, one thing I'll admit, one commenter said in a review, a video review that I was watching from a booktuber, and that was that this book is written like a fan fiction, and I do agree with that. I feel like it is written like a fan fiction, but at the same time, I see nothing wrong with it being written like a fan fiction. I felt that it wraps up so many beautiful things, especially including the way that it concludes with Harry and Albus Severus having that beautiful walk together as father and son and really trying to connect on a much deeper level. This book was amazing. I absolutely loved it. 4 stars for me. So again, I'm going to repeat what I said at the start of this video, which is, even though you've heard all the hate, I'm sure, let the haters hate because they're going to hate, but you pick up this book for yourself and judge it for yourself and let me know what you think. Let me know in the comments below. But in the meantime, I'm going to leave that there and let you guys go. Peace, blessings, and so much love. I post videos every Thursday and Sunday with reviews in between, and I'll see you again soon. Mwah. Bye guys, happy reading, bye!